Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what is this rainy Manchester Saturday morning. This is your first time in Manchester. This is actually what it's like every single day. So I apologise. It doesn't really get better than this, even in the summer. So great. Thank you so much, first of all, to Drupal for inviting me today. Whoops. This is going to be quite like a high-level talk. We're going to be talking about a few different things around AI. Just as a side point, so the way that I present can be slightly different. I will fly through slides. There's about 100 in total. But this slide deck is available afterwards. Feel free to take pictures, etc. It'll be really good. A really quick introduction to myself. You might not have heard of Traversely because we've been running for about 9 months. So we're a brand new startup. But previously, I was the lead AI consultant for National Defence Security for PA, a global AI capability lead for Kinetic, so primarily focusing on the US, UK, and Australian kind of policies and AI initiatives around there. Co-inventor of a system that we sold to the MOD, PhD in computational graph theory, loads of other things. Probably also worth mentioning that awards that we showed just a few minutes ago, I'm actually a judge for that. Which I wasn't aware of, so that's great. So I'm one of the recognized. So I'm actually an AI digital leader as well. So let's jump straight into this. So if there's one message I want you to take away from this talk today, is simply this. Everyone knows that AI stands for artificial intelligence. Really, what it should stand for is augmented intelligence. What we mean by augmented intelligence is how do we augment the human? And we'll talk about this throughout the whole deck, and we'll come back to this message consistently. Excuse me. So being blunt, people are the ultimate authority. That's simple. So AI will not succeed unless it brings value to us as people. Otherwise, why would we actually use it? So I'd like to give a kind of an overview of what the state of AI currently is. So these slides I'm about to show to you, for every talk that I give, I change almost every single time, which is mad, because in any other industry, these change probably every 6 months to a year or a couple of years. You know, it's kind of a slide that you can kind of pop in every now and then. But these are changing at such a rapid pace. So there's 3 kind of major themes in AI right now. The first theme is autonomy. There's a massive amount of work to make AI become your co-worker, again, augmenting. Embedding systems, so embedding AI onto devices such as your mobile phones, so that we're not using computation on large data centers. Agentic and orchestration. So agentic AI, obviously, we've all heard around how we can get AI to do things for us, essentially automatically by combining multiple models and orchestrating that. Multimodal is one that's actually slowly moving away. So we've kind of succeeded in the multimodal space, but we're still doing a lot of work in that area. The next area is trust and foundation. This is another massive theme across AI. A lot of people don't trust AI. In fact, let's ask the room. Put your hand up if you trust AI and where we're going towards in this. Not a lot of you. Great. Brilliant. So what does that mean? So there's the governance and risk. So the governance and risk is growing exponentially as we speak. In fact, new laws are coming into place, and how we as developers, how we as people in this industry are governing the AI is also increasing. Accessibility is a huge issue. Typically, if you say in the past couple of years, AI has kind of been more towards people who are more techies. So it's around making it more accessible to across the market, but not only that, but more accessible to people of different kind of disabilities, etc. The rise of open source. So we're seeing more and more open source models being released every day. I can't believe this, but it's being pushed a lot by Meta, which is mad. And then training and literacy, how do we increase the training and literacy? All kind of goes, again, towards augmenting us as humans. The last one is around strategy. So there's three kind of major topics here. Edge AI, which links very closely to the first slide. Edge AI is around how do we effectively strategize AI to be available on multiple devices. AI negation is a really interesting one. I don't know if anyone's seen, but like very recently, a few weeks ago, there was an insurance released for AI hallucinations, i.e. so if you make a decision on an AI hallucination, you're protected by that insurance. We're seeing more and more of that across the market. And finally, workflows. How do we autonomize workflows in a strategic manner? So all of those loads, everything that I've just kind of mentioned to you, leads to augmentation. That is the largest area in AI. We're now realizing it's not replace, it's augment. I would be amiss, though, if I didn't mention the AI bubble, because this is quite a big topic right now in AI. What I will say is we also had a tech bubble in the 2000s, the dot-com boom. That increased, it blew up, and we're still using computers and tech today, in fact, more so. AI is exactly the same. We're seeing thousands and thousands of new tools being released every single day, new models, new tools, new ways of working. That doesn't mean that when the AI bubble pops, they're all going to disappear. What it does mean is that it'll be reduced so that only kind of like the strongest remain. So what I would say is don't ignore AI. Don't think that the AI bubble popping means that AI is going to go anywhere. That's not the case at all. It just means we're going to see a reduction. So the AI takeover, this is worth kind of mentioning, taking a slight step back around how AI has really taken over in such a short space of time. I'm going to compare this to Agile. So while Agile is ubiquitous now, so Agile methodology as our ways of working, actually it took quite a while for it to kind of become a thing. So we started off in the 2000s where it was kind of a niche, and all the way through to 2010, it's now a widespread adoption. In fact, I think the latest statistics show it's something like 92-93% of organizations have adopted Agile as their primary way of working. That means 8% still use waterfall, so that's depressing as hell, but we can move past that very quickly. But it still took a long time and decades for organizations to adapt to using Agile. But let's look at AI, because AI is unprecedented. We started off as a niche in pre-22. We did use AI in some ways, but that's increased exponentially up until now. In fact, these are some of the rates of adoption. According to recent figures, last year, 88% of people used AI. That's in a couple of years. And arguably AI is still a proof of concept. It still hallucinates, it still has bugs, it still has problems. And yet here we are with 88% of us having adopted it. Comparing that to Agile, that's actually insane. And that where leads to where AI is in its era, right? It's still in the proof of concept era. You would have all seen last year a fantastic article released by MIT saying that 95% of solutions have actually failed. That's still really the case according to newer research that's being occurred in this area. So if you have a look at this slide deck, so as you see on the bottom here is typically the software development lifecycle. In terms of proof of concept to alpha, we're still seeing about 95% of solutions kind of make it there, 30 to 50% make it to beta, but that massive drop-off is still the case. And I think 5% is an overestimate still. And 0.1% in terms of end of life, kind of expected because it's still a new technology. We're not expecting many to reach the end of life. But again, I still think that's an overestimate. That leads to something called the adoption gap. And this is based upon kind of more the recent statistics. So when we say 88% of people have adopted AI, that doesn't mean they've gone past that pilot. So 38% of people that have been surveyed in times of the research, that's the amount of people that have actually made it past pilot. That's really, really low. Crazy. So why is that the case? And my argument today to you is that the foundations to transform haven't been built. A lot of organizations have tried to very quickly use AI within their workflows, not really giving it the time and space to be what it should be. This is one of my favorite slides. I'm really glad this works because the GIFs were not working yesterday. There's two kind of pictures here. You've got the AI changer pace, which is moving at a speed, again, that is very unprecedented. And you've got our human changer pace. As humans, psychologically, we are against change. It takes time for us to adapt, to understand and learn the technology or any new way of working. AI is moving at a ridiculous pace at this moment. So one of the ways that we've tried actually many different ways to try and catch up. And one of the things I'm going to talk to you about today is the replace versus augment. So instead of augmenting the human, a lot of organizations have trialed replacing. And quite frankly, why should we care about augmentation when we could replace? It's much cheaper, right? We can fire a huge amount of staff, we could do a huge amount of things, and we just replace. AI is a lot cheaper right now. So let's have a look at this as terms of a use case. I apologize if anybody works at these organizations. So Klarna and MSN, two really good examples of this. In Klarna, AI assistants replaced 700 human agents. In MSN, they replaced dozens of journalists with AI algorithms. What we found is Klarna actually had to rehire this human staff due to decline in service feedback. In fact, their agents were giving the wrong advice altogether, and that was a problem. And we'll come to that in a second. For MSN, the algorithms didn't quite work. It did the wrong thing. It led to brand damaging and, again, rehiring. So let's talk about augmented. And here's two really good examples from the last 6 months. So HDFC Bank and NHS England, where they launched a platform called Eva to augment. NHS England, rather than replacing the doctors, used AI to identify stroke patterns. Excuse me. In HDFC's bank, by augmenting their humans, they reduced the workload on their workforce, and the reviews were exceeded. Why? Because the AI was able to do a lot of the kind of basic day-to-day sort of operations, so the humans could focus on the complex matters. In NHS England, AI was used as a super filter. It halved treatment time. It allowed doctors to focus again on the areas that they should be focusing on, and also help them identify where they need to go. So there is a little bit more to this as well. So when we say replace versus augment, what does that mean when it came to those organizations that replaced? It led to legal liabilities. So according to recent rulings in court, even if an AI agent that's acting on behalf of your organization makes a recommendation to an individual using it, regardless of whether the AI agent is itself an AI agent and not human, that decision is still upheld in law. That's still upheld in court. It's a massive legal liability if your AI is hallucinating and telling people the wrong thing. It can also lead to reputational damage. It's led to lost skills, because if you've suddenly sacked half your workforce, when you're rehiring them, you're not going to get the same ones back, and you're going to lose a lot of skills in that case. So augmenting is clearly the future here. Now, I know you could argue that I've cherry picked, but time and time again, we're seeing the same results here. It is very rare that you see something in the opposite direction. So we've all seen like a single coder who's vibe programmed something and sold their product for millions. That's very, very, very rare. It's actually more this. This is the reality of what we're seeing. So let's talk about augmentation. So, and to augment and to identify how we augment properly, we must transform and build the foundations to transform in both a technical and organizational sense. This isn't new to us, right? So we've had to do this in the past before. AI is really similar to the rise of computing in the 90s. A fundamental transformation was required to adopt. So we've all seen movies and stuff of pre-computing. I was quite young when this all happened, so I was brought up with computing. But if you think about an accountant, etc., a lot of things were done by hand. Computing came, everything over moved to Excel. If you're an organization in the rise of computing, if you bought 2,000 computers for your employee workforce, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to pick up on what the computing can actually offer. It still required a transformation and requirement there. So we've done this before. We understand this. Let's talk about technical foundational ways to transform. So the first thing is data. And we all know the importance of data. We're going to deep dive a little bit on data. Data is extremely valuable. It's your all gold dust. It's everything that makes your organization what it is. It's where your IP lies. It's what makes you different. Data, however, in the past few years, we focused on other trends, big data, etc. It doesn't necessarily mean that data itself is AI ready. And getting it AI ready is actually a challenge in of itself. So let's talk about data processing. There's a few kind of do's and don'ts that I mention here when it comes to processing data to make it AI ready, because this is really important for the foundations of being an AI organization. Don't assume all types of data can provide excellent insights. So when you're looking at your data sets and you're looking at the data within your organization, or it can even data that you think, actually, this is not quite useful for me, or I don't see any use in this, it can still provide you excellent insights, especially when it's combined with other data sets. Don't throw away bad data. Data can actually teach AI what not to do. A really good example use case of this is when you're writing bids. So if you're training a large language model to understand your organization and to actually use AI to help write things, give it the ones that didn't work so it knows what not to do as well. So bad data is still really useful for us. Do not ignore governance. Governance is a key area here. Laws, ethics, and cyber are absolutely something that we're going to talk about slightly later, but it's absolutely key to this. One thing I'm going to mention now, the EU AI Act is coming into force on the 2nd of August. If you're not aware of that, that is fundamentally changing a lot of ways how we can work with AI. I appreciate it's the EU, but that will be coming to the UK. Might not be coming to America. America is slightly different, but they'll allow you to do whatever you want with the data. No, I shouldn't say that. That's not true. But the UK will be following suit very soon. Some things to do. So do process and understand. Take the time to process and understand what your data can actually do. This does take time. This does take a while to completely deep dive, but it's well worth it. Once you've done that process and understand, focus on the data that links to ROIs. If you think you're going to change and make all the data in your organization AI ready in one go, that's not necessarily the best way to work. You want to do this incrementally. Focus on the use cases that will bring the highest return on investment. Return on investment doesn't necessarily mean money. It could mean time save. It could mean a lot of different things. And orchestrate your data. A silo data set, which is most likely what a lot of organizations are working with right now. Your data is in silos. When you orchestrate it with other data, it could become extremely useful. So that's an area to kind of focus on there. Protect your data. Your data is your IP. In fact, it's very fair to say that many different AI tools, even if you're paying for them, are still training their algorithms on your data. You're losing that. And this is where I'm going to big up Drupal, because the future AI work within Drupal and even the opt-out settings that are within Drupal are actually genuinely fantastic at protection. So there's some really good stuff happening in this space. But protection is absolutely key. Protecting data. Laws that impact AI are genuinely a minefield. There's so many of them going around. Each nation has its own different rules and governance, and it is quite difficult to understand what's happening in this field. And as I mentioned to you before, the EU AI Act is coming into force in August, although elements of it are starting to appear right now. There's some fundamental changes here. One of the biggest changes is you can't rank individuals via scoring methods with the use of AI. So what does that actually mean? And this is going to be a really interesting case for us as an industry. Your data will be attacked. We now know that data is gold dust, and we're seeing more and more the cyber implications for organizations. In fact, just last year we would have seen, a few different use cases of that actually happening. AI has completely changed the game in cyber. If you think AI can be used for good, it's absolutely being used for evil. If I went to an agent and said, I want to hack into this organization, tell me what to do, it will tell me what to do. And that low bar to entry means that it's much more dangerous for us as organizations than it's ever been before. Ethical standards for use for data is also a huge priority. A lot of our day-to-day use of large language models, Copilot, Gemini, except ChatGPT, was all trained on copyrighted data. We know that. And we know that some of the things it's producing, you could argue, is copyrighted. So there's some ethical standards here. There's also an environmental area to think about here. If you're using AI for everything, is it ethical to use AI to do a simple Google search when you think about the environmental impact of that? I'm saying Google search. I know Google automatically does an AI search for you now as well. So it's almost tripling the environmental impact there. But there's some interesting areas here too. And all of these kind of lead to what I like to call data sovereignty, which is going to be a huge issue, which is already a huge issue and one which is going to be even bigger going forward. So here's some things around making sure your data is sovereign. Shadow AI has been on the rise. So what actually is shadow AI? So this was probably more prominent in the last few years, but it's still the case now. It's when in an organization, the people inside an organization are using tools that are unauthorized. As I mentioned to you before, thousands of tools are being released every single day. Not all of these are vetted. An example that we had actually is that we were going to use a tool for one of our clients, which was just to search PowerPoints. And I was in a Teams call with their developers. And I was like, okay, great. So what's the cyber implications here? And they returned back to me and he says, yeah, our CTO has root access to all of the data, but it's only for bug fixes. And I stood there and I was like, so you're telling me your CTO has access to all the data on the system, including our data? That's absolutely crazy. So it's not been vetted. A lot of these tools have not been vetted. So shadow AI is actually genuinely really dangerous for your organization. Don't treat AI as a bolt-on. So what I mean by that, it's not just an add-on that will suddenly fix things. It does require redesign of some systems. It might be a complete redesign of workflows as well. Legal and ethics, as I mentioned before, they don't assume that following the law and being ethical doesn't actually also it doesn't assure that you're actually being moral when you're in the use of AI. So be aware of the morals that you also have around this. Some do's around data sovereignty. So make sure sovereignty is a first-class system in any architecture that you create. Simplicity. So an example here is if you're required to have data on UK soil, just make sure that UK data centers are the standard in any sort of cloud system that you use. I highly recommend a single source of truth for your organization. So in a space where I would call it like an AI center of excellence-esque sort of thing. Essentially a place where all your standards, all your guidelines are in a single central place that anybody can reach into. And finally, open source. I'm a great believer in open source. I'm really happy that in AI, we're starting to move a lot more into this direction. Drupal is a fantastic example. It means that you have full control of your processes and of the data. Whereas, shall we say, proprietary software doesn't really give you that. So this is where I believe there's some talk about this in the future today, but the future CCC for Drupal is genuinely amazing. I'm really excited for the release of that. So going back to the importance of technical foundations, that was a slight detour around data, but some other areas of technical sort of ways of working that I recommend, in assuring that the explainability of your AI is there, making sure it's fully explainable and make sure it's able to explain to the user what it's doing. Hallucination is a really, really big factor in causing the wrong decisions to be made. Another example, very recent, you may have seen in the media, one of the police forces, I think it was Merseyside, used it to determine the Israeli fans coming across. And they used AI as a foundation to make that decision, in banning the fans from coming across. That ended up being a hallucination from the AI system. So we're having real world impact from hallucination. And those sort of cases will increase. We're going to see more and more of those as more and more of us are relying on the output from AI. I believe there's a move from agile to AI, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. And then the infrastructure. So the technical infrastructure needs to be in place. Cloud and on-prem. You can run AI models on-premise. They're becoming much more efficient. In fact, some of the work that we're currently doing right now involves us using on-prem rather than using the cloud. Really important to consider whether that's right for your use case. Ensuring that you're cyber safe. So Cyber Essentials is always there. Cyber Essentials actually changed this year. It's being updated to work with AI. Highly recommend having a look at those and implementing those as securely as you can. Injections is becoming more and more prominent. deliberate hallucination is an interesting area in this space right now. AI is, of course, a technical push, and one of my favorite images there kind of puts three really good high level areas: access control, data security, and data residency. Three really key areas to kind of focus on. As a side point, we tried to AI generate this and tried to make it just show three stools. There is a fourth stool on the back there. We just couldn't get it removed, which proves my point. So let's have a look at organizational change. I actually argue that organizational change is much more important than technical and considerably harder. Before I kind of continue, it's worth looking at the state of where we are as organizations right now. We have a young workforce. So people who, so especially, under 22-year-olds effectively, they've gone through school, they've gone through the A-levels, they've gone through university, relying on AI. And then you come into an organization where we've got a wide variety of generations, some older who, quite frankly, saw the rise of computing, let alone the rise of AI, who will struggle with this technology. So when we say organizational change, this is not simple. When you have some people that fully rely on AI versus people who do not, how do you get them to all come to a common ground and work together? And that's a really difficult area to kind of focus on. So strategy is a really key point here. Make sure you have a data and AI strategy that focus on the key wins that align with the organization's goals. If we're all under one roof, we're all working towards the same goals, it's much easier to take people on the journey. And as we said, data is absolutely key in this. When we say the whole company must be taken on the journey, this isn't just the techies in the organization. Work with security, compliance, end users, and in some cases, actually your customers. Because when you start to say, we're now embedding AI, that doesn't necessarily mean that your clients are happy with that. When Drupal announced it was doing an AI initiative, I'm sure there are people inside this room that would have gone, oh my God, what does this mean? And it's a journey for everybody in that organization, a journey for everyone. And I cannot understate that everybody should be taken on that. You should be discussing, you should be able to articulate what you're trying to achieve in this. Return on investment is absolutely key. So the previous slides around 95% of AI solutions currently failing was around the return on investment. So return on investment, again, does not mean financial return on investment. It's what you're trying to achieve, what that goal is. So identifying what that is a really key thing. By implementing this AI solution, are we trying to save time? Are we trying to alleviate any sort of like additional work on our employees? Or are we actually trying to get a financial gain from this? And so return on investment, identifying that and then working towards that is, again, a big part of this. Ensure your ethical, cyber and legal structures and guidance are there. They're changing all the time, and being up to date and ensuring that you are still compliant is absolutely key. Excuse me. And as I mentioned before about the kind of wide variety of people in the organizations, training plans, right? We've already shown that replacing doesn't quite work. You don't want to lose the human and the experience the humans have. So train them, get them ready to become AI. How to use it, how to work with it is much more important. Augment. Excuse me. So simply, don't replace. Replace is a short-term strategy. Might save money in the short term, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be built for success. Technology, off-the-shelf tooling is an interesting thing, as again, thousands of tools are being released every single day, and they all want you to sign up to these long-term subscription plans. You might do a simple proof of concept with them, might prove something, but does that mean it can actually go into production? And before you know it, you've signed up to a £2-3 million a year deal across the next 5 years for technology you might never use, or arguably might not even exist when the bubble pops. Excuse me. So technology, make sure that you understand what that means. There is an argument here around buying off the shelf versus developing your own. And there's pros and cons to both. Stuff like, again, Drupal, which has longevity. It's a great tool to be kind of focusing on. But there are others. Don't assume. So when we make assumptions, it's never great. There's always that famous saying, which I don't think I can say here, but assuming can lead to very bad things. There we go. Thank you. I don't know if that's going to come on the recording. Apologies. Don't assume that business can transition without training. There's going to be not just training, but don't just assume that the business can transform by itself. It's going to require effort, and it is a journey. Do not ignore cyber ethical and legals. More and more organizations are being taken to court. We're seeing that right now as we speak. If your organization makes a decision and you've ignored the legalities, that could pay off badly in the future. And of course, hire without a plan. So everyone's scrambling right now to hire as many data scientists as they can to become AI ready. If you hire data scientists and you don't have a strategy or a plan in place, what are they actually going to do? That doesn't mean by hiring these people you're going to lead to success. Plan this out properly. Our biggest kind of do's when it comes to transformation, especially technology and organizational, is determine the return on investment. When you look at your organization and you have a list of use cases, determine the ones that are the most high impact. Generate whichever those are, use them as a proof that you can do this, because you can. And then when you prove that, then it's worth investing in the remainder. Identify the business value. So what will actually bring you value? Don't just do AI for AI's sake. What's actually going to bring you real value, and what's actually going to cause you, which is actually going to prove that AI is worth that investment in the first place. Excuse me. Validate and fail fast is a really key one here. So as we said before, there's validating the return on investment, validating the process of getting to there. AI is in its research phase. We're still researching how it impacts different pipelines and how we work inside organizations. If you use a model and you're getting bad accuracy, that's fine. Pivot, change, try something else. Failing fast needs to be part of the culture going ahead. You cannot expect to do something expecting it to work perfectly straight away. Trust is a big one, and then strategy as well. Excuse me. So one of the things that I'm a great believer in is how we can use existing processes that we all understand and all work really hard to do, and how we can change them slightly. So this is, for me, a really good case study around organizational change, which kind of hits upon technical as well. Agile is obviously one thing that we all know and we all love. We know that it was probably one of the first major transformations, and it's been incredibly successful, and we use it for software development. It completely changed the course of software development. So Agile fits in software because we know that software has an input and output. It's regularly tested and assured. Architectures have evolved over time, but Agile is able to work with those. And we know we can estimate software. We've done it plenty of times. We know the rough sort of ways of working. However, the world has fundamentally changed. AI has changed how we do software development, how we develop, and the output of development. So what I mean by that is 84% of developers now use AI in some sort of manner, whether that's via programming completely, through to using inline suggestions, through to using it as a conversational device. Our efficiency is increased considerably. AI is also something which is updated a lot. So when we say that in the past, if you started a project, you pretty much knew, apart from maybe small incremental version updates for a language, that was something that you could kind of plan in, but it wasn't going to fundamentally change what you were doing. That's not the case with AI. So very recently, we had a Claude Opus 4.6 was released in the last few weeks. There's a fast version of that that's currently in development and might be released soon. Who knows when the next Opus version is going to be released next? But actually, I'm focusing on Claude, but Gemini might bring something out. Also, Google Copilot might also release something. With these models coming into place, that means that while we're in a development, so even if we're talking about 2 or 3 months, we need to build into the pipelines that actually we're going to spend some time testing these new models, making sure they work, upgrading, because we need to as well, because they are bringing considerable advantages. And then also AI usage is, again, active research. We're researching with AI. Agile was not made for research. Agile was made for development, not for research. So here's some of the impacts that we're seeing from this. Sprint goals and estimates are not as rigid. So in the past, when we've estimated what we could develop, we knew from previous work what that could look like. Let's say we could vibe program a feature now, and it's done within a couple of minutes rather than the 2 or 3 days a human would have taken. Does that mean that that ticket is now complete? Are we moving quicker? Not quite, but it could be. Vibe programming and using AI within that sort of structure in itself brings its own problems. Can we govern that code? Is that code human readable? There's plenty of times that I've looked in and gone, this is gibberish. Why have you done this? And also the bugs that come with it as well. When we're talking about programming inside this world, have you provided the right prompt for it to do what it needed to do? What about the case studies where it doesn't work? So how do we adapt Agile to make sure that even if we did code a feature much quicker, that bug fixing itself could take significantly longer? It's typical for foundational technology block to change with AI. So as I said before, models need to be upgraded. Different technology blocks need to be updated over time. How do we build that into the pipeline? And data. When we're talking about data, and I put it as the last thing here, but actually this is probably the most important thing. Your first sprint could be looking at data. Cleaning data can take significantly longer than we actually imagine. It could be quite quick, but it could actually take quite a long time. There could be a lot of bugs. It may not be at all AI ready, and we need to spend time to do that. So there's a lot of impacts to our general ways of working that we're seeing. So let's adapt our Agile into AI Agile, and this is what I argue is some of the ways that we can do that. AI ready pipelines, plug and play into the foundation as AI solutions. So if, say, for example, a model upgrades, it's a plug and play feature. We can just take it out and put something new in. Understanding the hybrid development is also key. When we are working, for AI to succeed, we must do software development. We must still build user interfaces. Humans are still going to use this. So when AI is moving at a much slower pace, which is typically the case, software development is powering ahead. So how do we make sure both of these teams are working together? And that hybrid development is really, really key. Being able to take software development resource to help the AI developers is really key. And a really good use case for this is, for example, in data cleansing. If a data scientist is working on data cleansing and doing it manually, that can take a long time. And software development could be moving at a ridiculous pace. Why not ask the team to create some sort of interface to go through the data and help that cleaning? That's a really, really noddy example. But what we're seeing is that's not really happening right now. And that's a really simple way to be able to work together in a hybrid manner. Organizationally, we're looking at a move from syntactic to intent. And what I mean by syntactic is where you're right in the depths of the the work that you're trying to do. You're really detailed. Intent is actually the way to go here. What's the intent of the solution that you want? And we'll get to there. Governed innovation should be baked into your development, and learnings are also what we call billable wins in delivery. So a sprint goal could be just to learn. Can we test this model and does it produce the output that we want it to do? It did not. Great, we're not going to invest a further £50,000 in that. We're going to pivot to something else. So learnings are actually something that's really useful. We fundamentally changed an existing process to make sure we're augmenting the development teams, the humans within this. So just to conclude, here's some thoughts. AI is augmented intelligence. Augment intent, don't automate the past. Build the right sovereign foundations. Invest in building the strongest foundations. Transformation is a journey, remember that, and human judgment is final. And one of my final thoughts is, what if the biggest blocker to AI success isn't the tech, but it's actually the way that we build it? Okay. Just so one last final thought for everyone. So we're talking about AI, and I know there's a lot of doubters, especially in the room, but across all of us. But we're actually right at the beginning of the stages of AI. Right now, we're in what we call artificial narrow intelligence, which is the current state of the art. At its core, all it's really doing is looking at a database and predicting what the right token to display to you is. It's really a really good predicting machine. It's not quite a human intelligence yet, but that's the next stage. We're moving towards artificial general intelligence, which is where AI behaves as a human. Now, I should caveat, we don't know yet if this is completely possible, but there are trillions of pounds and dollars being invested into making this possible. We suspect that it is. We don't know if it is, but we suspect that it is. So I can't say to you this is going to come in the next year. This could come in the next decade. It could be in 10, 20 years' time, but it will come. And finally, what we're moving right towards is artificial superintelligence, which is the hypothetical future. So when we say that we're right at the beginning of the journey of artificial narrow intelligence, AI is only going to improve from here. So do make sure that you take this in, adapt, and understand how it can help you, because it's not going anywhere. Right, thank you very much. I just want to do a really quick plug for Traversely, which is the organization we work for. So we started off by, this is a really good kind of thing here. So we asked AI to generate what a journey could look like. On the left-hand side here, you can see that when you think about doing an AI journey, it looks scary. We don't know what's happening. There's no path. What we like to do is we build that path and to kind of move you towards the sunlight, essentially. It still has problems because we're open about that. There's still other things to consider, but we help to build that path there and we find the right path through this. We're a fractional AI leadership. We deliver a fractional AI leadership and end-to-end strategic transformation. So please feel free to come talk to us. As I said, our kind of plug line is don't play with AI, win with AI. Some offerings here that kind of go through some of the areas that we work in. But that's it. Thank you very much. Ian Making is my co-founder, who is just there. We actually have brought some data strategy stuff, so we've got some one-pages that we can give for free. But otherwise, please feel free to add me to LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn as well. And thank you very much for listening. I hope that was useful. We have some time for questions and answers, so please feel free to, excuse me. I'm also, by the way, around all day today, and I will be going to the social, getting absolutely smashed this evening. So, so
we will help you.
Thank you. So, Brewdog, by the way, is a great venue, so I'm really looking forward to it. So, I feel free to grab me in the breaks as well. But yeah, if there's any questions right now, please shout them at me. Challenge me. I'm really open to that. Yes.
Making something on, there were so many things that I thought of doing this. I wish I had brought my computer. Yeah, I wish I brought my computer stuff down. I suppose the overarching thing is, given that we started the AI journey path potentially with the old IBM quote of computers does not make computers should not make management decisions because they cannot be held accountable. This seems to have gone very much by the wayside. We've introduced money into this to become more of a viable thing. The moral standpoint seems to be taking very much a backseat. The technological advancement is at some considerable pace. The human element, I think, is important. We change very slowly. I think organisationally we change very slowly. And I think from a legal point of view, even organisations would potentially change faster than the legal system. Given that we're looking at gifts of things like over 90% results of AI tests on war games resulting in nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah.
where does the change of pace of law, of organisation, of the human being and the AI systems itself, where is that all going to eventually balance out, do you think? That's more of a philosophical question.
It's great. I love being asked philosophical questions. So, let's use that example actually around the wargaming and using nuclear thing that we've all probably seen in the last few weeks. When we've trained the AI, we've trained it to win, and it's trying to find the quickest way to win in that particular case. So the quickest way to win is you go full steam ahead. We've all played games. It's like when you come to a final boss battle, like it tries to, most boss battles, you go from an easy, medium, hard mode. AI is jumping straight to the hard mode because it's like, let's just do that. That's because of the way that we've trained it. That's the way that we've built that particular area up to do. We've given it a goal and told it just get to that goal. That's a problem. That's actually kind of like, if you take that, I know that's an extreme example, but you think about the way that you use large language models. When you ask it to do something, you've given it a goal, and you've asked it just to get to that goal in some sort of manner. And that's where it's going to change. So how do we give it the right guardrails when we're trying to get it to a goal? And it's building that over time. A lot of this is learnings. A lot of this is us understanding the technology itself, because again, it is still really new. I still argue that if AI was like a software development system, we'd still be pretty much in alpha, because it's nowhere near where it should be for us to be making these sort of decisions. But we are making these decisions, and we're learning over time what that looks like. I think that happy ground is human in the loop for final decisions, not relying on AI explicitly. I think going forward, that's what we're going to see more and more of. Even agentic solutions where we're having multiple AI kind of systems speaking with each other to do something. The human in the loop is still really key. We still need to be the one to give it a go and to make sure that at various different points, it's hitting what we want it to hit. I hope that answers your question.
I was going to say, do you think the point is that we're failing to get out the ability to teach AI to have any nuance? So in data processing, it can't be precise. It's very, very literal, and it goes straight to the end point. And now we've got this, and then of course we've got the situation where AI is cheating. And there's lots of tests where it's like, I will even though I know technically I should know I'm disposable, I will let this human die in order to preserve myself.
Yes.
This kind of behaviour, which seems intelligent, but actually is.
So let me give you an example. So it's only very recently that AI models are able to tell you when it doesn't know something. If you think about when ChatGPT was released a few years ago, before it even told you, I don't know, it would give you a hallucinated answer. And it was really, really bad, especially at the beginning. It's only very recently that we've actually managed to do that. And even now, it's still pretty bad at it, right? How often does a large language model of any model say to you, I don't know? It still just tries to get to some sort of output. It's a people-pleasing tool that's trying to give you something, right? So it's not, nuance is something that it just doesn't really understand. Another good example is sarcasm, right? If we're being sarcastic to an AI model, it doesn't know what that is, right? It goes, oh, great job, thank you. It will see that as a great job, thank you. But that's not necessarily, it doesn't understand that nuance, and the context, which when we go back to my first few slides around the state of AI, that's a big part of what they're trying to focus on in developing these models going forward. But again, it's a journey, right? We wouldn't have known, like when the first ChatGPT was released, we would never have thought that this was really important. But now we do. Now that more and more people are using it, that's where the development areas of this and the focus on development is going towards.